So Donald Trump attacking Amazon again. Now, he has a fundamental misunderstanding of who owns the Washington Post, but I will get into all the details here. First, let me give you more lunatic tweets from the president. He says the Amazon Washington Post has gone crazy, ironic that he would say that, has gone crazy against me ever since they lost the internet tax case in the US Supreme Court 2 months ago. Next up is the US Post Office, which they use at a fraction of real costs as their quote delivery boy for a big percentage of their packages. In my opinion, the Washington Post is nothing more than an expensive, the paper loses a fortune lobbyist for Amazon. Is it used as protection against antitrust claims, which many feel should be brought? Okay, let's break this down on why it's problematic. So first of all, Amazon doesn't own the Washington Post. Of course. Okay, so now to be clear, Jeff Bezos personally owns the Washington Post. He's also the founder of Amazon. So I get if you made that mistaken connection, and I get if you say, hey, look, it's Bezos either way. But you're not the president, and hence you don't speak for the government, where freedom of the press is a constitutional issue. So he should at a bare minimum understand the facts. So Amazon does not own the Washington Post, Bezos does. If you think that's a small distinction, no problem, okay? Is there some truth to his point about how some billionaire owners will use their media outlets for propaganda? Yeah, that's also true, okay? And some do it unwittingly. I would argue that a lot of the corporations that run the bigger cable news channels have a worldview that is pro-status quo because they're doing great in the status quo. They're multi-billion-dollar corporations, so they have an establishment point of view. Murdoch does propaganda through his outlets. Now, fair is fair. Fox News makes money, but the New York Post does not make any money. Last time that there was a report about it, they explained, and this was a couple years back, that the New York Post loses $50 million a year, every year. And so why does Murdoch keep it? Because he likes to do propaganda in New York, because he thinks that it helps his other businesses. So it's not that there are no legitimate points in this. It's that he's the president, and you cannot attack the Washington Post, which is obviously a part of the press, in your official government role, because it's deeply unconstitutional. I know he's never read the Constitution. I know he's never read the First Amendment, but the First Amendment is incredibly clear. We have a freedom of the press. It is specifically mentioned in the United States Constitution, not just freedom of speech, but it says freedom of the press. So if you criticize the Washington Post, or I do, that's fair game. Even if he, as president, he criticizes them, no problem, okay? They're allowed to speak and they're allowed to print whatever they like, and he's allowed to say things back to them, okay? And I have my issues with the Washington Post. By the way, I also have issues with Amazon. So Washington Post, I think, was deeply biased against Bernie Sanders, and I called him out on that. Amazon has significant issues with what they're doing with their workers. Bernie Sanders did a great town hall where that was one of the companies that they talked about, and great points made all around on that. But it's one thing for us to do it. It's when the president says, not only did he criticize them, but he says, let's maybe press an antitrust case against Amazon because their owner owns a newspaper criticizing me. That's unconstitutional. And I know that Trump is not sophisticated enough to be able to do nuance, but we need the rest of us to be rational and say, here's criticism that makes sense, and here's where you cross a line. So, and of course, the reality is there's also projection in here, which is that the right wing has almost purely propaganda. Almost all of their websites online are backed by billionaire Republicans who are not interested in making a profit. None of those companies ever make a profit. No, it is done for propaganda. So Trump turns around and goes, that's what we do, so I guess that's what they're doing, so I'm gonna shut them down, maybe with antitrust claims. And finally, actually the most damaging part is, now, if you're gonna press an antitrust case against Amazon, he just made it infinitely harder. Because Amazon can now walk into any court and go, the president is clearly trying to control our speech. He says in his tweets and in his statements over and over again, he doesn't like what Bezos is printing in the Washington Post. That's why he's attacking Amazon through an antitrust claim. Well, you just screwed up the antitrust claim. As usual, pathetically stupid, and does not understand our system of government, And if there was a case to be made against Amazon, he just ruined it. So ironically, Bezos has got to be thinking, how did I get this lucky to have this schmuck in office? 2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below, then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.